everybody. It's Ed Rosenberg again, and this afternoon I am talking to CJ from Amazon Sellers Lawyer. CJ, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's always great. It's always great to be on your show. Thank you for having me again.
Okay, so there's nothing like talking about Amazon suspensions, which gets me going. Okay, rights owner extortion and scams. I understand some people are emailing other sellers through the platform saying that, send me some money and I won't file a complaint against you.
Yeah, what we're seeing is not only are brands jumping on this bandwagon of trying to knock out the competition, but now we're seeing scam artists who are sending in complaints. They have no ownership of any rights at all, and they're sending it through the system, saying, "Okay, but if you pay us, if you give us $500 or you give us $700, we'll withdraw the complaint. You can go back to selling." And people are doing it, and then they pay. And they say, "Oh no, that was just for one ace, and it wasn't for our whole brand. Send us even more money." And then people send more money and they say, "Oh, no, that was just for the US. If you don't want us to stop you from selling in the UK, you're going to have to pay again." And what I want to tell is every single seller out there is do not pay anything on a rights owner complaint unless you actually have a settlement agreement in place, unless you can confirm they are the rights owner, and just don't do it. I mean, there's a lot of scams out there. This is just the latest one that we're seeing from this awful loophole that Amazon has had in their system.
So what do you do in that situation?
Well, what we do initially on every single rights owner complaint, every single one, is that we confirm that the person making the complaint actually owns some right. I mean, in order to assert a complaint, you have to own that right. And so if it comes up that they don't own that right, well, then it's a whole different tactic in terms of dealing with that rights owner complaint, that they don't own it. And you could show it sometimes by pulling up the trademark from the United States Patent and Trademark Office website to show that this person complaining doesn't own this right, disregard it, and reinstate our selling privileges.
There are some times where they don't ask for money, but they say just remove your listing. Like HP does it a lot. They call themselves HP brand enforcers. Mm-hmm. And they don't talk about rights owners, but they say that they had no right to sell it. And I think it's legit. And do you know anything about that?
Well, sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not legitimate. For example, if you have the sole right to sell a product, some of our sellers now, some of your audience is actually reaching out and trying to get exclusive rights to sell certain products. I think it's a great move. And if you have that right in writing, then you have the ability to try and knock other people off. So I think that's really great. What we're also seeing, and we're seeing a lot of these complaints where there is no intellectual property right infringement at all. They're just trying to use the system to try and get the prices raised under their MAP pricing. There's a specific supplement company that we've seen several times over the last week or so that's doing this. And every time we stand up with the seller and say, this is nonsense, there's no violation, they've backed down. And so you really, first, you got to confirm, do they own any rights at all? And number two, are you infringing at all? And if they're not, you got to stand up for yourself and get them to withdraw that complaint.
Right. I think Amazon is definitely easing up on these. They see what's happening, and I think there's going to be big changes in the whole rights owner disease, which is infesting Amazon sellers.
That's exactly what it is. It's such a disease from this loophole, and I agree with you. I agree that the whole notice-dispute email address is eventually going to get some teeth, although the emails are coming in kind of sporadically. Some are saying to go to that website. Some are saying to go back to Seller Performance. We've seen now some that have given you like 4 different bites at the apple to say, try and get it withdrawn. And if you can't get it withdrawn, give us a plan of action. And if the plan of action is no good, then give us your invoices. And then also tell them to send to the withdrawal email address. So it feels like Amazon is still kind of working their way through how they're going to address this problem. But at least there's some light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I think so. What does it mean? I've seen this. Your listing is under an IP right review.
I don't know what Amazon means by it. But our clients have not been suspended for that. But we've gotten those emails also, and we're addressing it. Just like a performance notification that doesn't result in a suspension. If you get that, get in front of the curve before you're suspended and address it and explain why in response to that email that the review should go in your favor, that there's certainly no intellectual property right violation, and spell it out before it becomes a problem. Like this whole new health dashboard can be seen as a pain in the neck on one hand, but on the other, we now have the warning of the issues that you have to address before suspension, before it's an emergency.
Yeah, I still don't think the data is accurate, and they make it very confusing. They don't tell you if you should appeal ASIN by ASIN or if you should appeal all in one shot. And also they use that at risk. They need like they have under George Bush, they had the different colors for the terrorist,
Right, yellow, red.
Yeah, so like right now it's just at risk, not at risk. Like they need to have like 10 different levels. So they're putting the poor guy who has one inauthentic in the same boat as the guy who has 12 safeties and 16 inauthentics. And they're calling it at risk.
There's a correlation between what kind of volume they're doing. I mean, they say there's going to be transparency and all sellers going to be treated the same. I think it's nonsense. I think the larger the seller, they can withstand more issues because the percentage of the issues are so much smaller just by rate of the math.
No, that makes sense. I mean, that's called treating every seller. I mean, if you have 1% issues, so that's called treating every seller fairly. Obviously,
yes, except if you're a newer seller or a smaller volume, your one mistake can throw your percentage way up through the roof.
Yeah, I don't think
it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't think if you're a new seller and you're old and you have one negative feedback, they'll let you out a little bit. But that's extreme situation. But but obviously they can't treat a seller that's doing 25,000 a month the same boat as someone doing 2 million a month and say if you have one inauthentic, you're suspended. Obviously.
That's right.
Okay. What else is going on in suspension? Anything else we should look out for?
Well, as we approach Black Friday, I've been telling you guys for months that while the suspensions were coming in faster and faster and faster, but the reinstatements were keeping up. The reinstatements were faster than ever. There's certainly been a bit of a slowdown over the last week or so where the reinstatements are taking a bit longer than they were a couple of weeks ago. So if you have the health dashboard and you have some issues, hold tight. You got to be perfect through the holiday season. You certainly don't want to get suspended now. It's the high season and the volume is still very high, but the responses are slowing down a bit. Also, with this whole health dashboard thing, there's certainly an issue as to what issues you want to address right now. Now, let's say you're at risk because you have 3 or 4 or 5 different open issues out there. I'm not so sure now's the time to address it. Like the last thing I'd want to do is to write something to address a performance notification right in the high season where you're not suspended and rock the boat. But I would suggest that as soon as Christmas passes, as soon as we hit January, that you make yourself a checklist and you work through each and everything that's on your health dashboard and try and get rid of those issues for the following year. So you go into the high season, you go into Valentine's Day, with really, really good metrics, and hopefully you're no longer at risk.
Right. What do you do about, did you hear, I don't know if we spoke about this, the sanctions emails?
Oh, the sanctions emails, we recently started addressing these. I don't know if other people were getting them long before, but in this office, we just recently started addressing them. You got to look at your product. We dealt with one particular product that was made in Korea, but did not indicate whether it was North Korea or South Korea. So we addressed it in the first shot. We think we resolved it, but you got to look at the product, look at the countries where it's coming from and where you're shipping to. The treaties are not all that difficult to read, and if anyone calls us, we can point them in the right place to look for themselves if they'd like, or they can hire a lawyer to handle it. You certainly shouldn't be hiring a lawyer to handle intellectual property rights or anything having to do with international law or international treaties. But if you feel confident, I can certainly point you in a direction where you can look at it yourself and try and figure out how you want to handle it.
Why does Amazon let you list these items? I just don't get it.
I don't know. They make a lot of money. They're smarter than Jeff is smarter than I think both of us. But why they don't just preclude things that are made in prohibited countries, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, they restrict things that shouldn't be restricted, and they don't restrict things that should be restricted.
I think it's more the same. It's like what's old is new again. Let's put the burden on the sellers. we'll make money on it for a while, and then we decide to sort of cut them off, we'll do that.
Right.
They're really an awful business partner in a lot of ways. They give you a lot of opportunity. They're willing to cut your legs off at the drop of a dime.
Yeah, they just want you to figure it out. Tell us how you figure it. Just figure it out. That's basically what they say. It's amazing.
Now, this goes on to the love-hate relationship.
Right.
I mean, we love them because they give you access to 80 million customers and tremendous opportunity. I mean, tremendous opportunity. But on the other hand, they seem to be holding the vast majority of the cards when it comes to certain issues.
Have you seen people like become millionaires on Amazon within a year?
No.
Doesn't happen.
I've met people who've told me that story. But personally, no, I haven't seen anyone who started with us early on and then become a millionaire that quickly. I know it exists, but I would take it with a grain of salt. I mean, everything, including Amazon, has a learning curve. So to say you're going to jump on and immediately become a millionaire within 12 months, it's a little far-fetched, but it can happen. I'm really, really proud of a couple of my clients who are in high school. Got a couple of guys in the Midwest where I can only talk to them after 4 o'clock because before 4 o'clock they're still in school. And I just think that's really, really cool. I think those will be the guys who become millionaires at the youngest ages.
Well, the ones who are still in school.
They're still in high school. They're still in high school and just knocking it out of the ballpark. I mean, just really, really smart, savvy kids who work hard. And 2 different kids who are in high school.
And they're selling on Amazon.
And they're selling on Amazon and doing great. Not only are they making a ton of money for a kid in high school, they're making good money for grown people. They're just doing great.
Right. The thing is, the entry barrier is still pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's still the same. It really is. You have a cell phone and a $50 or a cell phone and a credit card.
You're a businessman.
Start doing it.
Right. It doesn't take much. You just buy and you buy a deal, and before you know it, you're in e-commerce.
That's right, and international e-commerce pretty easily as well.
Right, and you have a whole shipping operation because of FBA.
And all of a sudden, they're coming to us for advice.
Right. Okay, CJ. Really appreciate that. That was really good. And we'll keep in touch. Thank you.
All right. Great speaking with you, Ed.
All right, bye.